Hypothetical question. What loadout would you choose for the zombie apocalypse? What resources are the most important in the zombie apocalypse? And what length would you go to protect your survival compound? These are a few of the things we're going to be discussing today on Hypothetical Questions with the Gray Matters blog. I'm Gray. This is my co-host Hatter, and we're going to be talking about all hypothetical questions relating to the zombie apocalypse. Are you ready to discuss zombies, Hatter?
Brains.
To quote Pirates of the Caribbean, we figure that mostly means yes.
Indeed.
So, all right, we're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to hit you with our first hypothetical question. Then the first question is going to be, you are going to be in the zombie apocalypse. You are going to have a small survival community, mostly made up of your friends, your family, the type of people that are just around you in general. And you're kind of surviving, but you're not really well established. Now, you are going to find, and you don't know which kind of zombie you're facing. It could be any kind of zombie. We don't have that information yet. Now, you're going to find a bunker. In this bunker, there will be one of three things, and a nearly infinite amount of these three things. Now, of course, it's not like some kind of supernaturally infinite. It's not like there's a portal, but just there's so much of this that you're never going to use it all up in your lifetime unless you literally just set it all on fire. Here are your three choices. One is food. This is basically completely full, stacked to the rim with MREs, all sorts. Some are going to be the good, tasty ones. Some are going to be the spaghetti meatball ones, whatever. They're not necessarily going to be very good, but they're all going to be there. They're going to have tons of calories. They're going to have all the little extras. They're going to have hot sauce. They're going to have salt. They're going to have all that stuff you're really going to wish you had. So basically, the best long-term storage food you could possibly get for the scenario. The second option is going to be ammunition. This is going to be of one specific type of ammunition, one specific caliber. So it might be 22 long rifle. It might be 9mm. It might be 5.56. You get to pick the specific one, but it's all of the exact same caliber. And again, it's a nearly infinite supply. The third option in this bunker is going to be fuel. Now, you have to pick a single kind of fuel, but that fuel could be gasoline, petrol if you're from Europe, diesel. It can be propane. Propane comes with its own set of problems and benefits. It doesn't really go bad, but it's harder to transport, all that kind of stuff. But you do not get any propane accessories, no matter how much that may make Hank Hill sad. And I mean, it can even be something different if you want. I would even allow jet fuel, although that has way less, applications. If you want kerosene, that's also on the table. Anything that could barely be considered fuel. Uranium rods are not on the table. Let's not get crazy. Standard fuels. So you're going, and in addition to this, you'll have a bunker. So you'll have a nice bunker in addition to all of this. Which one of these three bunkers do you choose, Hatter?
First question. How secure is said bunker?
Have you played Fallout?
Yeah.
Imagine a Fallout vault with the giant gear door. Basically, secure for all intents and purposes. You are not going to get into this thing without your permission. And you have a biometric scan. You stole the hand off of a deceased government employee or something. You have a way to get in to this bunker that no one else is going to be able to replicate.
Okay, cool. And the MREs, do we have ketchup?
Some of the MREs will have ketchup in them. More of them have Tabasco sauce, but there are some that have some ketchup in them.
Wait, Tabasco, not Frank's Red Hot?
I don't think they made a deal with the government to get Frank's Red Hot into the MREs. So unfortunately, you will have to deal with the inferior hot sauce. Now, for me, it's Cholula. If it doesn't have Cholula in there, that is the inferior hot sauce. But in the zombie apocalypse, I can make do with some plain old Tabasco.
Oh yeah, you work with what you got, and Tabasco isn't bad. It's just that Frank's Red Hot is the best hot sauce that there is. Now, the thing is, I could go out and find Frank's Red Hot sauce. There's nothing keeping me in the bunker forever. As for ammunition, if it's only one kind, it's a bit limiting because I'm somebody who likes to have options, and
Yep.
I have multiple, we'll say, pieces of sporting equipment that I would need batteries for. And fuel, see, you almost had me with fuel, but then you said there would be no propane accessories. So the thing about propane, though, is it can also be used as a weapon. So there is versatility there. Propane's good for cooking, weapons. It's not really good for moving a vehicle. I'm sure there's some vehicles that run on it, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
Interesting fact. There are some trucks, not very many, Actually, what you'll likely find that runs on it is things like forklifts. Like actually at my place of employment for my day job, I work at a lumber yard, and all our forklifts are propane powered.
Excellent. So, forklift's not going to be great for travel, though. Um,
No, absolutely. That was more of an interesting curiosity. Now, I will say that while you don't have any propane tanks or whatever to transport in, there's nothing stopping you from going out into the world and getting those. You're just going to have to acquire those on your own. They are not supplied with the bunker.
okay, so here's what's going to lead me to my answer. When it comes to things like fuel and ammo, you can find it out in the world. I can pretty much turn anything into a weapon. I am a bow and arrow guy. I have a bow here. I've got several different types of arrows. And the key with that is, like, with a firearm, you can fire repeatedly. Even if I'm using a bolt action, I'm quick. I'm not even gonna try to be modest here. I'm very good with a long arm, but a bow is quiet. And if you're careful enough and quick enough and quiet enough, let's say you got a group of raiders, you get one from one direction, and if you can move quietly and quickly enough to another direction, they'll come look for you, and you just rinse and repeat till all those raiders are kebabbed. But the thing at the end of the day is, I'm not going to need a lot of arrows because, it's all about how you use them. The thing with food is food rots. Most types of foods go bad. Your basics, your breads, your whatnot. But MREs have a very good shelf life. And the first thing you're going to need, those MREs, they come with drinks, right?
Drink pouches. They don't come with any liquid, so you actually still have to get a water supply.
Okay. Well, that's simple enough. Even if you find bad water, you boil it. If it was the nuclear apocalypse, I'd feel a little worse about it because, radiation. But yeah, I got to go with the food because food is going to be the thing that's hard to find because any food you find on store shelves is going to go bad eventually. Even the canned goods will go bad before those MREs do. As long as I'm fueled, I can find fuel. I can use what I've got for weapons. I'm not going to be out there trying to pick fights. I'm going to be a scavenger. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to get what I can. If I have to fight, I'll fight. But food, I think, would be the thing because I want to survive. If I already have a secure bunker, I just have to go find a water supply. I don't even really have to leave if I find a good water supply. I'm just good. It's chilly here. My apologies.
And I think that's a great way of looking at it. And I kind of agree. I'm actually going to come down on a similar side here, where I'm also going to say I think the MREs are my main choice, but I have a little bit different reasoning of how I arrived there. One, somewhat similarly, that we can find weapons. Fuel is kind of optional. And when you really think about the fuel, it lets you run vehicles, which is useful, but not a necessity. And of course, it allows you to heat and cook. Even gasoline you can use to run a stove. You can actually build different types of stoves that work off diesel or gas or propane or whatever. So we can use them for heating and cooking and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's stuff that's nice to have, but not completely necessary. There are other ways to achieve those things. The ammo is great, but again, we have the thing of that. Now, of course, I'm in a position where I live in Texas. There's ammo everywhere. I guarantee every abandoned house you come to is going to have ammunition in it. Every truck is likely to have a little bit of ammunition, at least every fourth or fifth one. There's probably a if it got abandoned on the freeway, inside of it is probably a firearm and probably at least a little bit of ammo. So, to me, the firearms and the ammunition are not as scarce a resource. Whereas food is something you have to eat every day. I may not get in a fight every day. I may not need to drive a vehicle every day. I will need to eat 3 times a day, guaranteed. So having those MREs is going to alleviate. We don't have to be farmers. We don't have to be hunters. We can just hunker down, spend all our time keeping our heads down, protecting ourselves, scavenging. We don't have to dedicate that full time to food production. And that's going to free us up an amazing amount. There's another factor here is whatever I have, I'm going to want to trade it with other people because that's one of the low key, really cool things about this scenario is whatever you have a nearly infinite supply, so you can use it as a trade good. Well, I'm going to feel a whole lot more comfortable giving someone food than I am going to be giving them bullets because my fear of giving them bullets might be those bullets then get used on me. So I would actually rather make that trade in the other direction. Someone who is hungry but has ammunition for their firearms may be willing to trade me that ammunition, trade me those firearms in return for my food, and I feel very comfortable with them being fed and me now having the ability to protect myself better. That's a trade I'm more comfortable with. So I completely agree. And you brought up the excellent point that MREs, when it comes to long lasting, long storage food, about the only thing that's better than that is like whole grain, like literal like wheat berries and stuff like that is probably the only thing. And that only if it's like vacuum sealed or in Mylar pouches or things like that, unless you stumble upon prepper heaven and you've got the 5 gallon buckets with oxygen absorbers and 5 gallons worth of wheat berries. That's the only thing that's lasting longer than an MRE. Now, those will last literally thousands of years. They've opened up tombs in Egypt where they had wheat that was still good. You could still eat it, you could still grow it. So that is the ultimate survival food, but that's the only thing that beats MREs. So I'm going to say that MREs, hands down, are the best in this. But guys, let us know. Did we miss something? Is there a different outlook you have on it? As always, let us know in the comments which way you would go and how your answer is different from ours. And as always, let us know if we got it wrong. So, are we ready to move on to the next question?
I will say one more thing on this. When it comes to food, I'm
Absolutely.
still going to be doing some farming and hunting because occasionally you want a fresh steak, you want fruit. But yeah, everything you said. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. What was the next question?
All right, for our next hypothetical question, we are going to actually address something we didn't address in the last one, which is what type of zombies are we going to be facing? Now, for this specific scenario, we do realize there are other types of zombies, but we're going to be focusing on two very specific ones. And the question is going to be, which would you rather face in a zombie apocalypse? So here are our two options. One is the classic fast zombie. This is going to be your 28 days later type zombie, your rage virus zombie. This is an infected human. Now, here's going to be their advantages. They are still relatively smart. Now, they are overcome with rage. They are not going to be being slow and methodical, and they're not going to try to pick locks, but they can probably still remember how to open a door, at least if it's not a very complicated one. They can figure out how to use a basic weapon. Now, it's just going to be pick up rock and smash you with it, but they are going to be able to handle very basic tools. They are also going to be out of the two zombies. They're going to be faster. They're going to be stronger because they are as fast and strong as a roided out, raged out, angry human. So they're going to be in some ways much more dangerous. Now, their disadvantages are they're a human. So, kind of in the same way that their advantages are also their disadvantages because they are going to bleed to death. To quote Game of Thrones, people are made of water. If you poke holes in them, the water leaks out and they die. So bleeding is absolutely something that works. If you do organ damage, if you do limb damage, all of that is going to take them out eventually. And again, while they don't feel pain, now that is going to be one of their advantages. They are the full rage virus zombie. You could cut off their legs and they'll still try to crawl after you. But if you cut off their legs, they are on a very short timer because they are bleeding profusely. That's going to be one of their biggest disadvantages is the bleeding, especially as opposed to the other types of zombies. Now, our second type of zombie that you get to choose from is the classic slow zombie. This is going to be something like Night of the Living Dead. And just because I know someone's going to ask, no, we're not even touching the fungal zombies, the Last of Us zombies. That's not a part of this one. That's not a part of this question. We'll get to something like that at a different time. And their big advantages are going to be they are incredibly hard to put down. These are the ones that you have to get a headshot in order to destroy their nervous system and take them out. Unlike the last one, where you only, you can shoot them in the heart, you can shoot them in the lung, you can shoot them in the head. And this type of zombie is fully dead. Heart shots, lung shots does nothing. If you take off a limb, that just means they can't use that limb. They're not going to bleed. They don't have running blood. They are being animated by, the evil energy of a comet or whatever they said in Night of the Living Dead, which was always really weird. But they are not going to be put down by anything short of bullet to the head or full on decapitation. Even if you decapitate them, they can still bite you. In both these cases, I want to throw in that the zombies are communicable by bite. These are both contagious. So that is not really a one is better than the other. That's both of them are about the same. The big disadvantages for our slow zombies are going to be that they are not as coordinated. They are not intelligent at all. They cannot use a tool. They cannot open a door. They can break a door down, but they cannot even figure out a basic doorknob. They might get lucky as they scrabble at it, but it's going to be more like your dog trying to figure out how to get into a room. They're not going to be human level intelligent. at all. Now, again, they are completely immune to pain. Even if you break a arm, they can still stab you with the bones. And they are also going to be much slower, much clumsier, easy to trip. If you knock them down, it's going to take them a while to get up. But the big difference here, and I want to say kind of the big difference between the two, is that these zombies are going to last a very long time. They're going to last until they basically decay. And they're not going to rot like a normal zombie because they're kind of preserved again by whatever energy has animated them. So, I mean, they will eventually decay, but we're talking over years. We're talking like mummies breaking down over time. You know, they'll get drier and maybe a little slower, but they're not just going to rot like a normal corpse. They're going to be around for a long time. Be slowly becoming less effective, but they're still going to be there and still dangerous. Whereas our previous fast zombies, basically, if they can't find enough to eat, if they can't find enough to drink, and drinking is another thing that's going to be very difficult because they're not necessarily together enough to know, oh, I need to go find a water source. If they are, you know, exposed to the cold or the heat, they're going to die just like a human.
Okay. Because if I have the food bunker, fast zombies are kind of easy mode. Give it a couple months, they'll all be dead. But if I had to pick, if I'm just dropped into the situation, I'm gonna go with the slow zombies because I'm not super fast and I don't have any fully automatic sporting equipment because that would be illegal here. But a bolt action is about as good as a semi-auto in my hands. Again, I'm not being modest. I know what I'm good at. A bow is going to be just as useful because they're slow, and I don't have to, go into a full sprint to get away from them. I just have to do a brisk walk, and take a few out. And it's like they're about 20 feet away. Turn around, walk. And I prefer to play defensively in any given situation because I like to be in control of a situation versus adapting to a situation. And I like to think I can do both, but I prefer control. So yeah, my strategy would be around the same things I said before. Being stealthy, being quiet, being strategic, and taking it at my own pace. I want to be able to take it at my own pace and just be like, okay, so there's a horde of about, let's say, 10 undead out there. I'll take out a few now, take out a few later, have a snack, have lunch. It's just a cleanup job more than anything. I'm going to go with slow just because it plays to my strengths.
Well, this is a little bit unusual for us, but we're actually going to go 2 for 2 with me agreeing with you on what we would pick. I have a few different thoughts, but at the end of the day, I agree that I'm absolutely going for the slow zombies. Now, again, I do totally understand anyone who would pick the fast zombies because you can wait those out. That's only going to be a problem for X amount of time. But I'm assuming that at some point, because like you said, we don't have the bunker in this scenario. We have to go out there. So we have to be trying to gather food. We have to be scavenging. So we are at some point going to run into these zombies. We're going to have to deal with them. And for me, one of the big factors is which one would I rather take in a hand-to-hand combat situation? Because obviously we don't want to fight a zombie in a hand-to-hand situation, but you're going to. At some point, the best laid plans don't always get you laid the way you planned. And that being the case, at some point, you're going to have to go hand to hand with the zombie. And when I think about fighting the roided out, fast zombies, man, that's going to be hard because that's going to be like fighting the worst human you've ever had to fight in your entire life versus the slow zombies. Now, they're strong, they're resilient. They're not as strong necessarily, but they have no pain response. You can't, bend their fingers back. You can't put them in a joint lock that would hurt. You cannot do what in martial arts we would call a restraint by pain. You have to do restraint by position and things like that. That's a whole other thing. We're not going to the martial arts philosophy discussion. But either way, you're limited in what you can do with them, but they are slow and they are clumsy. So something like knocking them down is going to be very effective. Either A, you can knock them down and then finish them off with a blow to the head, or you can just knock them down and then run because you can knock them down faster than they can get up. So theoretically, you could knock a zombie to the ground, take off running, and you could be in a new zip code before that zombie ever catches up with you. Theoretically, you would actually be really good at just like getting away from them. Like they would not be able to track you. So, and of course, it's always important to remember this is one of my favorite weird facts that I like to remind people of. Remember, you evolved as a pursuit predator. There is not an animal in the natural world that is as good at distance running as humans. You are built for it. That's why you sweat. So you, of course, now the modern humans, we have gotten really bad at it. We don't practice it like we should, but the more you practice, the more you do it, you are literally unmatched in your ability to run long distances. The only animal, and this doesn't count as a natural animal because we created it, that is even remotely close to us is sled dogs. That's the only thing that's as good at distance running. Cheetahs can't beat us. Horses can't beat us, not at long distance running. We're fantastic at this. So you could literally just run from the slow zombies forever. And all you got to do is carry a long stick, knock them over occasionally when they catch up with you. Don't get cornered by a big horde, and make sure you have a safe place to sleep at night, and you're zombie proof. So that's my main motivation, is that at the end of the day, if I end up hand to hand with a zombie, I feel like I have a better chance of taking out the slow zombies. And then everything else you said, that they're plenty easy to take out. They're not going to be chasing after me. Just all those things, totally in agreement. But the hand to hand combat question is my big one, that I have to say I'm going to go with the slow moving zombies.
You could also pretty much just power walk away from them. I don't know if you've seen if you watched Walking Dead.
Yes.
There was a scene, and I wish I could find it because I wanted to use it for so many memes. Where, oh god, what's the guy's name? The leader, Rick. There's a scene where Rick walks out of some compound, and as he's walking out, he's out of it. I don't know what was going on. I can't remember, but I just remember I wanted to use this as a meme because he kind of walks out and he turns his head to see a wall of zombies and just turns very quickly and keeps walking like, nope. And I wish I could find the sequence because there are so many things I react to in that way. Like, where I don't necessarily run away, I don't try to destroy. It's like, and just keep walking.
Calmly walk in the other direction.
Yeah, try running away. Try power walking away. Calmly walk in the other direction. They won't catch you. It doesn't matter.
There's a fantastic scene from World War Z, the book, not the movie. That again, if anyone hasn't ever read World War Z, it's basically short stories from the zombie apocalypse, and I love it. And one of them is basically a guy who is in a zombie survival community, and he's in a wheelchair. And he really wants to participate in the security of the compound and all that. And his entire argument is, look, I can wheel faster than a zombie can walk. I can get away from them as good as you can. He also has an entirely really cool thing about how, hey, look, as long as I lock my wheels, I can still use a 22. And him arguing that a 22 is just as good at making headshots and things, so that he can totally participate as good as anyone else can. And I just thought that was some really cool, fun representation.
Yeah, I like this guy. I do like this guy. I don't remember that one. I read it so long ago. It was like 2013 the first time I read it. There's a few I remember, because I listened to an audiobook and part of it was narrated by Mark Hamill. So obviously I remember that one the most, but there's a few others that were really interesting, and it was just, yeah, it was a very good book. Anybody who hasn't read it, don't see the movie, don't bother with the movie. The book is fantastic.
All right. So we're going to move on to our third question here, which is going to be, and this is going to be kind of a long, in-depth discussion and is going to have a little bit of nuance to it, because we're going to be designing our zombie apocalypse weapon and armor loadouts. Now, here's the scenario we're going to be in. You have a compound. It's relatively defendable. It's actually got food and water. You've got that all figured out. You have multiple people who are all going to be participating in security and all that kind of stuff. You're doing pretty good. Now, here are the threats you are going to need to keep in mind. There will be raiders of some kind. They might have knives, they might have guns. Guns will be rare, guns will have limited ammo, but they're going to be out there. You are going to have to deal with fast and slow zombies at different points. Both of those zombies are out there in the ecosystem. Now, they're each going to have their own advantages, disadvantages. Sometimes they'll even fight each other. That's two completely different threats that we have out there, but they are out there. Now, you're not going to be fighting these every day. You're not under constant threat. But when you go out into the world, you may run into any of these threats. And whenever you're back at your compound, there might come a time when the alarm bell sound in the middle of the night. Could be raiders, could be fast zombies, could be slow zombies. So we need to take all of that into account. Now, we are going to be coming up with one loadout. So this is the loadout you're going to be with, whether you know it's going to be raiders, zombie, or fast zombies, slow zombies, anything like that. This is your main loadout. With theoretically, you may have other stuff you could grab for specific missions, but this is your basic loadout. Here's what we're going to be picking. We're actually going to discuss armor at the end, because armor is a really cool question that I have actually done some cool experiments with back when I had my zombie chain. But for now, we're going to talk about your hand-to-hand weapons. This is a sidearm, something you can wear on your body that you can use your hands while it's, holstered. a second weapon, which is your main weapon. This is something that theoretically you would need to carry in your hands. You might could sling it on your back or something like that, but this is your large hand-to-hand weapon. Um, Second is going to be your ranged weapons that are not firearms. Now, I'm specifically including this for our non-American friends because exactly as the guy who did Shaun of the Dead pointed out, that if you set a zombie story in America, then it's all about the guns. Whereas in a lot of parts of the world, just there aren't that many guns. That's not as big a factor. So we're going to be saying these are the, and even if you do have firearms, ammo is limited. So we're going to say a ranged weapon type sidearm, something again you could easily carry on your person, and a ranged weapon of something bigger, that you might need to actually sling across your back or carry in your hands that is non-firearm in nature. And then, of course, we're going to do a sidearm firearm and a full-size long gun firearm. So this is going to be the full loadout. You're going to pick a thing in each one of these categories. You're not necessarily going to carry these on your body at all times. They might be in a backpack. They might be strapped to your bicycle or your horse or your Jeep or whatever you're carrying. But these are just the three you will have easily at your disposal. So what would be your loadout, Hatter?
Okay, so a sidearm melee weapon. Baseball bat probably don't count, right?
I would say baseball bat is more of a larger. I mean, yeah, that's going to be kind of a main weapon. It's on the edge. I'm not saying you couldn't sling one on your hips. I'd allow that to kind of be either way if you really wanted that as your sidearm, but that's definitely on the big side for a sidearm.
I'll play by the rules. Probably a ball peen hammer for short range stuff, because if you get a good swing with that, it's crashing right through somebody's skull. And even if you don't, if you're talking about fast zombies, it's going to be particularly good against them because they can get dazed and stuff. The other zombies not. You know what? I'm going to switch that to a claw hammer, because a claw hammer you could do the slower zombies with a little better, and the ball side you could do the faster zombies a little better.
What was the character from Walking Dead who used the claw hammer?
We can't remember who that character was. Anybody in the comments know? It's a guy in The Walking Dead. He used the claw hammer.
Yeah, remind us who it was. Awesome character, but I'm blanking on his name right now. But anyway, there was a character in Walking Dead who used claw hammer, and it was super effective. So that is a great choice. Also, it has the added benefit of being very useful just being out in the environment whenever you're looting and raiding and all that kind of stuff. Whenever you're trying to go through old shopping malls and stuff like that, that's going to be very useful for breaking, prying, pulling nails, all kinds of stuff. Heck, you can use it to build barricades. So that is a fantastic all around choice. So that's your sidearm. What's your long arm in your, now again, this can be everything from a baseball bat. It could be a pole arm. It doesn't have to be something that you're likely to find. It could be a medieval weapon. You could choose a halberd if you wanted. You could have a pike, a naginata. It can be anything you want. Now of course you do have to carry it around, so the bigger it is, the harder it is to carry around. But this is your full-size weapon, so presumably you do have some way to store it and some way to carry it. But when you're using it, you're going to have to tote it around.
Have you ever seen No Country for Old Men?
Yes.
Do you remember the scene where he gets the guy out of the car and he's like, I need you to step out of the car? And he has that big smile on his face, and he's got like a compressed air machine that he presses to the guy's forehead, and the guy's like, what are you doing? And he just kills him instantly with it. Basically wrecks his brain.
That is called a captive bolt stunner and is used for slaughtering livestock.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's not going to be. It actually probably would be good against the fast. Here's my question: we only saw him use it once. How quickly does that thing recover from a shot?
Well, weird. I know a weird amount about this actually. There are two kinds. One uses compressed air. That's actually going to be terrible for the zombie apocalypse because you would need to keep compressing. I mean, you theoretically could do it with a large pump, but that's going to be very prohibitive and it would have a certain amount of shots. Now, the compressed air one does recover very fast. I mean, it can go boom and then boom again. Um, they do make a spring powered one that you literally just ratchet back. So I mean, it would be certainly an idea. I mean, they're not like very maneuverable. It's not like you're going to use them in a martial arts kata or anything. But presuming you could get them up against something's head, I mean that's a thing. I definitely never would have thought that. That is a really interesting answer.
This is where I'm confused though, is because yeah, the other one you mentioned, the air powered one's gonna have a certain amount of shots. It's gonna run out, but it's quicker. It's a situation where you could take out a bunch at once. So it's really going to depend what kind of zombies we're talking about. Because if we're only talking about slow zombies, get the spring loaded one. because you're not really in combat with them at that point. You're just, cleaning up some bugs. For faster zombies, again, it's going to depend on the size of the herd. Because, the one I saw you had, it came with an air tank, and that's something you could strap to your back. You could have multiple air tanks, but you got to switch it out when the air runs out. So it's going to depend on how many shots you get out of something like that. But I'm still kind of leaning towards the compressed air one, because the slow zombies I could take out pretty easy with the hammer. And, sorry, scratch that, reverse it. The quick zombies I could take out pretty easy with the hammer, because they have the daze factor. And just, quickly smack them a few times, it'll hopefully take them down. For the slower zombies that might be in the way, like they might be tangling things up. There's fast zombies coming and the slow zombies are here. And you don't want to get tangled up in that. Just the slow zombies. And then the quick one comes and swing with your hammer. And you can drop it and pick it back up. It's not like if you set it down, it disappears.
Absolutely. Like I said, that's such a creative answer. I never would have thought of that. I absolutely love that.
Oh, I had another thought just now. They use oxygen tanks, right?
Well, it's compressed air.
Yeah. Oh, so that probably can't be rigged to explode like an oxygen tank.
Usually it's not going to be under enough pressure to like really go boom. I mean, if the top gets knocked off of it, I mean, there will be a little bit of explosive decompression and it will launch a little ways, but it's not going to be like a giant boom. No.
Oh, but if it has a handle, you could use it as kind of a makeshift baseball bat too. And I love
100%. You could absolutely beat them with the tank.
And I love a weapon that has more than one use. So I'm going to go with the compressed air, that thing you said that I can't remember the name of now.
Active bolt stunner.
Active bolt stunner, yes.
And for anyone who's maybe unfamiliar with this, I just want to give you the complete picture. Basically, it's this little handheld gun thing that has a metal rod that's about yay long and about yay big around. And it is normally in this position. And when you pull the trigger, it goes to this position and it shoots basically a steel rod this far into something's brain. They usually use it for relatively humanely killing livestock. There's some argument about how humane it is, but that's really an argument for another day. But it would be very effective at taking out zombies that needed to be killed with a brain shot. Again, never thought of that one. Super creative. I love it.
It's still better than a sledgehammer, humanity-wise, though. We will say that before we move on.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to say for my answers, I sort of have two answers. I'm sort of two minds on one thing. I'm going to sort of go with kind of my more standard zombie apocalypse kind of loadout, and then what I might do just because of my particular training and what I love. So my first answer is going to be my sidearm is going to be some kind of machete. I actually own a cold steel gladius machete, which anyone who's familiar with the gladius, the Roman sword that comes to a point. That's the kind I have. I really like that one. I've tested it on coconuts and watermelons and things like that. It works really great. It would have no problem cleaving through a skull. Like I said, we actually tested it for that. It's really good. So some kind of machete, again, they're very useful for other things. They're useful for chopping tasks. You can even process firewood with it, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. So I like them. I think that some kind of machete, like Cold Steel has some fantastic machetes. No, I'm not sponsored by Cold Steel. If Cold Steel would like to sponsor us, we are down. But I don't think they're not the only ones. They're just cheap and very effective, and they work really good. So definitely some kind of machete on my hip is going to be really good. For a long arm, I'm kind of on a couple of different things. Part of me just wants to say a 6-foot staff. A staff is very effective. It's going to be very good at knocking zombies down. It's going to be very good at keeping zombies away from you. Even if they're the fast zombies, you can still crack them in the head with it, and you don't have to crack them near as hard. You can also knock them down, hit them in the head. Slow zombies are going to be great. Sweep the leg, bash the head. I mean, you can just do that like you're on an assembly line. We can also make that a spear, just add a point to the end, add a metal point. We could make it a halberd, but at the end of the day, I really don't think that's going to be as effective. Not for me. I'm going to either stick with the straight pokey or bashing them in the head with the shaft. So something like that is kind of where I would probably be if I'm going for more of a classic zombie apocalypse thing. That said, there is a part of me, and it is the stuff I have training with, that really wants to say, I want a Japanese wakizashi on my hip and a naginata for my polearm. Anyone who's not familiar with that, a wakizashi is a short samurai sword, and a naginata is a samurai sword on a stick, for layman's terms. Does that make me a weeb? maybe. But those are actually the weapons I have the most training with because in Bujinkan Ninjutsu, that I was one of the martial arts I trained in, we did a lot of katana stuff. We did a lot of this kind of stuff. I'm actually really good at cutting with them. I've done the tatami mat cutting and all that kind of stuff. I did a lot of sparring with them. So I feel like those are weapons. For one, that Naginata has a crazy amount of cutting power. Because again, essentially picture a katana on a stick. They are very good at chopping. They could take a zombie's head clean off. Heck, if you do it correctly, it could cut a zombie from the crown of its head to its crotch in half. So, I mean, they're just really powerful. They're very fast, very maneuverable. They're very good, by the way, if you happen to not have a lot of upper body strength. They're very good at multiplying that strength and making you stronger. There's actually a very fun fact that female samurai, which, yes, there were female samurai, some people aren't aware of that. They were usually called onibugeisha, and they were actually very fond of using the naginata. That was their weapon of choice because it made up for lack of upper body strength. So Naginata is a love of mine, and Wakasashi, as far as a short blade goes, it's two-handed, so of course it's faster and stronger because it can take two hands. It has about the same length blade as a machete, and while maybe it's not as good for utilitarian tasks, when it comes to killing zombies, I mean, that's just going to be the gold standard. And those two, if I have to fight a raider, if he doesn't have a gun, I'm feeling very good about myself because that Naginata is a very hard problem to solve when it's coming at you.
Yeah.
So, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to let my inner weeb win out, and I'm saying Wakasashi for my hip sidearm weapon and Naginata for my main weapon.
Okay, so that word you used to describe lady samurais, you said Onibu geisha. I know the word demon is in there, right?
I am mispronouncing it. My Japanese is terrible. I want to say it's Onabugeisha. No, it's not Oni. Oni, yes, being a type of demon. Oni is actually like an ogre demon. No, it's not that word. It sounds similar, but it's not that word.
Okay.
And Bu is warrior, and geisha basically just means woman. I know it's we often think of geisha as the as the entertainers dressed up in the very specific way, but that's just part of their title. And geisha just literally implies that it is a female.
That
So
makes
basically,
sense.
these are female warriors in general.
So yeah, I like the Wakasashi. I'm gonna stick with my whatever what I can't keep the word in my head that you told me, but that's what I want.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good choice. You're going to look like a escaped redneck slaughterhouse employee, and I'm going to look like a mall samurai. So well, we would be very interesting characters in this zombie apocalypse movie.
We could make that movie.
I would be down to make this movie. All right, so we're going to move on to selecting our zombie apocalypse ranged non-firearm weapons. So again, one small thing you can easily carry on your person, and then one larger thing that you have to kind of carry and actually put some effort into maintaining with you.
Okay.
So which ones are you picking?
Well, I think you probably already guessed this, but a compound bow, that's going to be my large one because I'm very, very good with a compound bow. In fact, most of the money I spend on arrows is because when I'm target shooting, the arrows get damaged. I'm not saying I can shoot through an arrow every time, but I can hit the targets, hit my target closely enough that I've wrecked a few arrows, and it's a blessing and a curse. It's going to be a bit of a curse in the zombie apocalypse. But the point is, I can use an arrow. I'm pretty quick with a bow, and I'm pretty accurate with a bow. As for the small arm, probably a good, powerful slingshot. Especially one of those ones that straps on your arm like this, so you get you know what I'm talking about?
Yep, absolutely.
And with a slingshot, really, anything you find that's around that big is a projectile. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a slinger and my bow.
That is a fantastic choice. Now, and slingshot is actually would very much be one of my choices too. Now, I do want to bring up a sling. Anyone who's not familiar with this, think David and Goliath. It's basically a piece of rope you spin around your head, has a pocket. Those things are so fantastic. They are so powerful. I mean, in the day, they were more powerful than some of the bows that were present at the same time as them. Here's the problem. They take so much practice. You're not just going to pick it up and start hitting zombies in the head with it. I actually have made them. I actually had a whole videos where I made slings and I have practiced with them and I still cannot hit crap So while I want to pick a sling so bad because I mean, it fits in your pocket. You can wear it as a headband. I mean, you can have it on you at all times. Anything, but you can use stones, anything that you pick up. You can actually use lead bullets that make it go faster and or make it more deadly. And it's so good, but you have to be so good to use it. And I'm not, and I know who I am, and I'm not that guy. I'm not him. So I'm gonna go ahead and say not that now I would choose the slingshot. That was one I had in my mind, but so that we don't have the redundancy, I'm going to go with the sling bow. Have you ever heard of a sling bow?
I haven't, but I have some idea of what you're like. I mean, just from context, what you're talking about.
Basically, it's actually a modification. You start off with just a regular slingshot, just like you're picturing, with the arm brace and everything like that that you would fire normally. But it has a little attachment on the front, literally called a whisker biscuit. We're not going to go deeply into that, but basically to hold an arrow, and then literally you pull it back, you pull the arrow back, and you fire it like a bow, but it's a slingshot.
The funny thing is that's exactly what I pictured. So we're on good terms here.
They're fantastic. They're really accurate. They actually have a surprising amount of power. They're very cool, and it's a way to have a bow that you can literally carry like in your pocket. So it's now. Are they as good as your compound bow? Absolutely not. I mean, they're obviously bigger is better and all that kind of stuff. But at least in this context, we're not going to say it's better in all contexts. Calm down, guys.
There's nothing wrong with being average. Wait, what were we talking
Exactly.
about?
Go average weapons get the job done. It's fine, guys. But in this case, the bigger weapon's going to be better. So I'm definitely going with that as my sidearm. And for my long arm, again, I'm just to kind of choose something that's a little different. I have my little sling bow, which is going to give me the speed of repeat firing.
Mhm.
So actually, I'm going to choose a crossbow as my main weapon. And the big advantage the crossbow has is you can sit in stealth, ready. You can fire at will. It's the same thing that deer hunters run into a lot. Whereas with the bow, once you draw, you're on a timetable. You can't just sit there forever, unless it is the type of compound that's basically a crossbow turned sideways. I mean, those exist, but
Yeah.
whereas if you have the crossbow, it's a lot more manageable. It's not as fast, but again, if I want to fire fast, I've got my little sling bow. So I'm going sling bow crossbow combination. Of course, crossbows have a tremendous amount of power, so that's going to be my pick.
I like a good crossbow. I'm a little better with a compound bow. I don't really know what it is. Like, cause I mean a crossbow, it seems like it should be easier. You have a sight, you point it. I guess it just comes down to practice. I've used a compound bow a lot more than I've used a crossbow, so I'm just better with it. Plus you do have the repeat action of it if you're quick, and I am. You pull, grab. Your aim's gonna be bad. I don't like semi-autos in general. We'll talk about that in a moment, I'm pretty sure. But if you're in a
Yep.
situation where you have to get a lot of enemies out of your way fast, you could at the very least stop them, if not take them out.
Now, as you predicted, we are going to move along to choosing your sidearm firearm and your main firearm. I have a pretty good idea what yours are going to be, but go ahead and let everybody know, Hatter, what you're going to be picking.
Well, for my long arm, I've said before, I love rifles. It's going to be a good bolt action rifle, a Springfield if I can get my hands on it, a Springfield 30-06, because that's, it's got a lot of power behind it. And the thing about me, with the reason I would choose a bolt action is because, and I've tested this, I'm a lot more accurate with it because if you have a semi-auto and you miss, subconsciously or otherwise, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to keep firing. Before you know it, it's going to take a lot longer to refill your magazine than it is to hit that bolt again. So, if you're quick, if you're careful, if you know how to breathe, if you know how to fire under duress, I do. I've had people screaming at me while I fired just to test that before. You're good. Now, as for a handgun, I probably would actually, if I got a sidearm. Despite what I just said, I probably would go for a semi-auto because you get that flurry there. So probably just like a good old-fashioned Glock or Beretta. I don't know too much about pistols. I'm a long arms guy. But something like that could fire quick and if I have to get out of a situation, especially if I'm in a situation where there are raiders after me, you get that threat factor. Like you're firing quickly, they're going to panic. It's more of an escape tactic than anything else, honestly.
Absolutely. Now, I agree with you, and actually, something you said about the more accurate fire from a semi-auto or from a bolt action in this case than a semi-auto. We actually have like data from the military to back this up. Because one thing they actually did in certain conflicts of the military was they would actually take the fully automatic weapons and they would restrict them down to where they were only burst fire. That way, the guys wouldn't just sit there and hold the trigger down and rock and roll. If they made it where it was only semi, I mean, they even did some studies where they considered restricting them to semi auto completely with just single shot because it made them a lot more accurate. So we know for a fact that the longer it takes you to work an action, the more accurate you will be. That's an established fact. So you actually are very onto something with that. That yes, while it might theoretically take a little longer to work the action, each one of those bullets is going to count for a lot more. And bear in mind, this is the zombie apocalypse. We do not have a guaranteed source of ammo. This is not a continuation of the first question. You don't have infinite ammo. So every one of those bullets has to count. So I think that's actually a really good choice. And then something like a semi-automatic firearm, your standard sidearm. I mean, the ammo for that, something in 9mm or whatever. I mean, that's the most common ammo in the world. That's if you can find bullets, those are probably the bullets you find.
Exactly.
Because there's a whole bunch of different things I kind of want to choose. Like they actually make a revolver that has different size cylinders that can take a bunch of different, they call it the Chimera, and it specifically is designed to be able to take like 13 different kinds of rounds of ammunition.
That's
But
awesome.
but basically it can only fit one of each of those. So it's terrible at everything.
Yeah, if you try to please everyone, you're going to end up pleasing nobody.
So actually, for the handgun, even though it's the same thing you said, I just feel like it's the right choice. Yes, I could go with a big revolver that has a barrel and a scope and go for the long range, but your long arm is going to be better at that. At the end of the day, I just really don't think you can beat a sidearm. Something like a Glock. A Glock is what I carry. I carry it in 40, but if I was going for which is 40 caliber Smith and Wesson, which is a mid-range caliber, if you're not very familiar with bullets, just it's a medium bullet. It's not a
Yeah.
really big bullet like a 45, but it's not a 9mm. It's in the middle. But if I was going zombie apocalypse, it would be 9mm just because that's a much easier caliber to find to scavenge. So pretty much same as you, 9mm Glock. I am a Glock fan. I really like Glocks. I think they're very good. Some people hate them. There's nothing wrong with a Springfield or a Smith and Wesson or a Sig. Those are all great, but I'm a Glock guy. I like Glocks. Um, for my long arm, again, I'm kind of going with a very basic answer, but I think the modern sporting rifle is going to be something I'm going to pick. I'm really not that picky about my brands. Rock Island makes some pretty good ones. I mean, and in case you're not familiar with the term modern sporting rifle, that's what a lot of people would call an assault rifle. That's not really accurate, but it's what we would call a colloquialism. So in being a colloquialism, it is accurate. Just know that the word assault rifle doesn't really have a meaning. So, but it is what we would normally call a modern sporting rifle. And yeah, that's the gun you're picturing with the detachable magazine that takes 5.56 rounds or 223, whichever you want to call it, we're referring to here in the scenario. We're going to put some optics on it. It's going to be semi-automatic. Yes, they do make them in fully automatic. They're not civilian legal, but this is the zombie apocalypse. We wouldn't necessarily care about that. But I would still want semi-automatic because you can still pull the trigger really fast if you need to. I'm going to be relying on my trigger discipline. And that way it can be kind of versatile. It's going to be really good at taking out both zombies and humans. Fast zombies, slow zombies. It's very now in some ways, is it as good as your 30-06 bolt action at long range and stopping power? Absolutely not. But it's sort of a jack of all trades. So in some ways, I'm kind of going with like the very middle of the road Swiss Army knife suite of weapons. Now, I will say there is a temptation to take a shotgun. Shotguns are so good. Shotguns are even very versatile because we can load it with buckshot for short range and we can put slugs in it for, while not crazy long range, definitely decent range. So if someone picks shotgun, they wouldn't be wrong. That's a good choice. But I just feel like with zombies, I don't want them very close to me. And I don't necessarily need to do massive damage. Although against the fast zombies, that would be really useful because again, they're going to be hard to put down. So a shotgun would put them down very quickly. This is actually an interesting PSA for people that no handgun round is good at one shot stopping. They're just terrible at it. Even your big 45, they're not good at it. Bigger rifle rounds are, and shotguns are. At the end of the day, whether you're carrying a 9mm or a 45, one bullet's not doing the trick. Remember, anyone worth shooting is worth shooting a whole bunch of times. But
Go all the way.
so yeah, that's going to be my loadout. Now, here here I want to throw out a question for armor. Now, this is something you're going to have to wear all day. This is going to have to be something you're going to be walking around in. Now, I'll allow pretty much anything you get. You want bulletproof armor? Cool. You want medieval gambeson, medieval chainmail, all on the table. What are you wearing to protect yourself? Now, and it can also be kind of an amalgamation. It can be something that's not necessarily armor, but it has to protect you from zombie bites, that kind of thing, and presumably whatever a raider can throw at you. And remember, armor is always a compromise. So it's not necessarily, there's not really like a right answer because they're all going to have advantages and they're all going to be trade offs. I mean, it even kind of matters what climate we're in, but we're going to just assume we don't really know the answer to that question. So, just in general, what armor are you going to choose for the zombie apocalypse?
We have a few options. The first one that comes to mind is that I guess you'd call it armor that the people on the ninja bikes wear. I would be charitable in calling those motorcycles, but with the pads and the armor here, that's a great option. It's all in one. It doesn't obviously tear easily. It can take a hit.
Motocross gear is what I've always called that, is what you normally call it, and that is such a fantastic choice. A lot of times that actually has some Kevlar reinforcement in it, and it is made to protect you when you are sliding across concrete at 60 miles an hour. So that is a classic choice. That's one I would very strongly consider myself. So that's a great choice to start with.
I would have that. I would also want to have just generally, especially when it gets in the colder climate, because I live somewhere where it gets very cold in the winter. So if I have to pick one, I'm picking that. But if I can have a backup set, I'm gonna go with just layers: leather jacket, leather gloves. You got a hoodie underneath that. You got jeans underneath your leather chaps. Don't get pervy, people, because I said chaps. And I would say just because chaps normally do not cover the rear end. Something to go between the pants I'm wearing and my buttocks, because the zombies will go for my ample buttocks. So maybe two pair of jeans, maybe a pair of sweatpants under there, but layers are king. So in the cold, I'm cheating a bit here because we do have to think about climate, but in the cold, all those layers. In the hot weather, motocross gear.
Well, and you bring up a really great point, because I do want to point out that I actually experimented, because someone had the theory that, hey, wouldn't a pair of blue jeans protect you from a zombie bite? And someone brought that up, and I was like, man, that doesn't sound right. So I experimented with it, assuming that my jaw is roughly equivalent to a zombie's. We could argue that they're not going to have fear of breaking their teeth, but we can just argue that it's somewhere that the bite force of a human is similar to the bite force of a zombie. So I got myself a summer squash, wrapped it in blue jeans, and bit it for a video. Um, and I will say, while I, obviously wasn't breaking through the material, I was just crushing anything under it and ripping chunks off. So a zombie and their saliva is still going to soak through those blue jeans, so you're still going to get infected, you're still going to get bitten. But what I did find was the more layers you had, the harder it was to bite through them. Actually, one thing that did really well was just a standard winter coat. Like a big, thickly padded coat that maybe had like denim on the outside. I couldn't bite through that. I couldn't actually do damage through that. So that's a great choice. The more layers we put there, the more protective it's going to be. There actually is a type of medieval armor that was literally basically just a quilted coat, called gambeson, that actually they've even shown it showed like decent at stopping arrows, even not amazing, but decent. So could deal with swords and things like that. So cloth armor stacked, and I'm kind of going to say the same thing. I'm just going to kind of amen your statement that between the leather armor, the modern version of leather armor of motocross gear, and just like layers of work clothes, I think are going to be your best bet to be versatile, to be something you can comfortably wear, and that's going to provide you a decent amount of protection both from zombies and from humans. I think that's the way to go.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I'll just lock that in. Motocross armor and layers for the winter, because onions have layers, ogres have layers. I did the accent by accident there. That is deeply ingrained, but you get my point.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I will throw in that I think people should keep in mind is, remember, you need to protect your face too. If ideally, like that's where actually the motocross gear comes in, the full bike helmet, great idea. One thing I would throw in is that like a full respirator breathing mask, like you would use for painting or something like that would actually be really good to protect you so that you don't inhale zombie particles. But failing that, just like a handkerchief tied up bank robber style, I feel like most people know what I'm talking about. Make it into a triangle, tie it around your head, put it over there. I feel like that's going to be really good. That's a whole lot better than nothing. Definitely something to protect your respiratory system and face from getting zombie splatter. It is a really good thing to consider for your general zombie armor.
There's something else I said I would do if I ever got bit, and that is I would construct a set of armor that could not be cracked open, that was totally bulletproof, but also prevented me from biting anybody. So basically, I'd just be a menace walking around. I couldn't do any harm, but nobody could do any harm to me, and I'd just be there forever as a memory of, yeah, that was Matt, and this is exactly who he is.
People would just keep you around as like a curiosity. Oh, that's Matt. He's our resident zombie. He just bumps into things. He's fine. Ignore him.
Exactly.
All right, and we're kind of going to wrap it up with one final bonus question, and this one is kind of a moral question. So and of course, as people probably know, there is of course going to be a little bit of trolley problem in this because a lot of my questions are secretly trolley problems. But don't focus on that part. Here's the scenario: you are the leader of a zombie survival compound, and in this compound, you actually have a very secure perimeter, the only weak point being the gate when you open the gate. Now, it is defended, but when you open the gate, there is a chance for zombies to get in. It is not like a fantastic airlock system. You're doing the best with what you can. You do have people on the towers and guns and all that kind of stuff. Most zombies aren't going to be able to make it over the walls, but you have to be very careful when you open the gate. Now, you have sent a party of people out to scavenge, to gather resources, to hunt, whatever. You sent them out there in order to bring resources back. You just got called to the wall because your party is coming back at full speed and they are trailing a horde of zombies. And they are radioing ahead, telling you, we are being pursued. We are coming in hot. Open the gate. Open the gate. We cannot fight them off. They are going to kill us all. And you believe them, of course. They know what they're talking about. They cannot handle these zombies outside the wall. If you open the gate in order to let them in, then they're going to be able to get in, but the zombies could also get in. You're not guaranteed to be able to shut it fast enough. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. If you don't open the gate, your people inside are going to be fine, but the people out there are definitely not going to make it. You can try to provide a little cover fire, but that's not going to make enough of a difference. They are not surviving if you don't open that gate. If you open the gate, you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you get them in and you fight off the zombies. Maybe the whole compound is overrun. Maybe some of the defenders die who wouldn't otherwise have died. You don't know what's going to happen. So, which would you do? Do you let them in or do you keep the gate closed?
Trolley problem. I have a few questions. First of all, we're assuming I know all the people at this compound very well. This is basically my zombie family, right? My zombie survival family.
Oh, absolutely. And more than that, you're their leader. They elected you for whatever reason. We don't know why, but you are the leader and you're the one that made the decision that someone needed to go out. You may not have handpicked these people, but they're the ones that said we volunteered and you said, "Okay, you guys are on this detail." You sent them. You know them and they look to you and trust you.
Okay, so so they said they were going to go out. That's a good detail to have. Oh, the trolley problem. Why? So here's where I am. Either way, if I let them in, possibly nobody dies. If I don't let them in, definitely nobody inside dies. So there's two sides to me on this, really. There's the side of me that believes in probability, that believes we have to, not probability, but loss prevention. We have to prevent as much loss as possible. So the only way we can know for sure exactly how many people we're losing and how many people we're not losing is we don't open the gate. But the gambler side of me is saying we could save everybody. And here's the problem with the gambler side of me. The gambler side of me lost an entire tax refund and several paychecks in the past, so I don't exactly have a good record with these gambles. At the same time, these people are looking to me for safety. At the same time as well, they have to know the risks at this point of going out. They also have to know that it had to be done and someone would have to do it. But at the same time, they know that the reason that people aren't volunteering and that they're stepping in to help these people is because they know the risk. But at the same time, why does there have to be a trolley problem?
Because I'm evil and I always put in a trolley problem.
at the same time, I think, as much as I hate it, I'm probably not opening the gate because we know that when you go out, there are risks. We asked for volunteers. We told the volunteers no, and we probably went over with the volunteers. There is a non-zero chance that you're dying out there. How big is the party I'm sending out?
Arbitrary number. It's definitely not like half the compound. It is a handful of people.
Okay, so we're gonna say if we have 110 people in the compound, this is probably 6 or 7 people, right?
In that under 10 or so.
Yeah, I hate it, but I'm gonna close the gate because I know that you see my brain gears turning here, and they don't like it. But at the same time, if one zombie gets in and somebody gets infected, the whole compound is screwed. We have to take out whoever's infected, and we're gonna have people saying they might not turn this, and that. We might have people turning on me and restraining me, saying, "No, we can lock them up until a cure is found." There's like a whole bag of bananas that you open up when you choose to open the gate that I, not out of laziness, but out of just keeping everybody alive, just don't want to open. So, as bad as it sounds, I'm leaving the gate shut.
Well, and the key thing to remember is it's not that there's any right or wrong answer here. This more is just a way of looking at how we look at problems and how we value things and how we think. It's really more of a thing that reveals things than there being a right answer or wrong answer. And here's my take on it. Which basically, long story short, I'm opening the gate and we're going to handle this together. And my thing is, if I leave them out there to die, there are going to be people when I ask for the next group of people who are you guys that okay, I need someone to go out, they're going to remember this, and they're going to remember that I made the decision to save the majority, and they're going to remember they're not part of the majority. So they're not going to trust me the same way. And it's kind of an apes strong together kind of thing. We're all in this zombie apocalypse together. We live together or we die together. If we're going out, if that team that I sent out there is dying, we're all dying today. This is just the end of the compound and this is how we go out. And if we survive, we're all surviving. We fight together, we live together, and if need be, we die together. Now, that's maybe not the right answer. This might be how my compound ends. But I think at the end of the day, that's the only decision I can make. So that's the way we're going. We're opening the gates, we're arming every man, woman, and child, and we're fighting it out Alamo style. That's the way we're going, good, bad, or otherwise.
And I didn't even think of that, like future people not wanting to go out. But again, at the end, I hate to do this because I believe in transparency of leadership. But I have to say that would lead to a chain of events of me basically having to tell them, no, they died out there. The gate, we never had the chance to open the gates. When they were on their way back, we got a transmission saying, don't open the gates. And here's the problem with who's like, it depends who's running the comms. So I would have to restrict who's running comms. There would have to be, unfortunately, a group of people who run comms who understand that, the vast majority doesn't understand what it is we have to deal with. So we run into a problem of leadership, and I don't want that. It's a big, complicated situation. Why does this have to be a trolley problem? Why are you doing this to me?
Because I enjoy making people suffer. That's one of the reasons I started this channel. So, guys, let us know in the comments specifically, what is your answer to this trolley problem? Do you open the gate? Do you not open the gate? And also remember, answer all the other questions too, because I really love hearing your guys' takes because you always have such creative takes. What is your zombie loadout? Which of the 3 resources would you pick? And would you rather fight fast or slow zombies?
And I want all of you to admonish Gray for continually giving me the trolley problem because I hate it. I hate it so much.
And let me know in the comments if you want me to come up with new trolley problems to torture Hatter with. Make sure you let me know in the comments.
I'll know who said yes. I'll see it in the comments. You know what?
Don't worry. Don't worry. Say yes. I'll protect you.
I'm just using magic here, just so YouTube knows I'm not making threats. I'm talking about magical curses. I will put a curse on you. I will put a curse on your cow. If you don't have a cow, I will put a curse on, I don't know, your favorite animal out there in the wilderness. I don't know, but I'm going to use magic against you if you make him give me more trolley problems.
So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you let us know the answer in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. So far, so good. Everything is going fantastic. We're having a ton of fun doing these questions. Make sure you also subscribe to Save Awesome Studios. That is the other channel where you will find Hatter at. And we will see you next time on Hypothetical Questions with the Gray Matters blog.
And me.